Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Rabbi Chernitsky, Director of Chabad of Newfoundland. Lovely to be with you again. We're trying to get back on track to the Wednesday night Torah amazing class. So here we are. This week's Parshas Ki Seitzei. Ki Seitzei means when you go out to war. So one of the main commentators, Rashi, says that what the Torah is speaking about, which kind of war. Since it says when you go out, meaning it's not an obligatory war, milchemes chayva, it's not a mitzvah to fight, as would be a case against Amalek or the 7 nations that lived in the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. Instead, speak about a different kind of war, milchemes reshus, an optional war. For example, like King David over the Melech fought to expand the boundaries of the land of Israel. There was some mitzvah involved, and nobody had attacked, so it was an offensive war, Milchemes Tenufa, also known as an optional war. And what's interesting is that the Hasidic masters, starting from the Alter Rebbe, the Pastor of Chabad, say that the war the Torah speaks about here in our Parsha is the war that each one of us fights against its own evil inclination, the war against our internal struggles or self-doubt. And the question that the Lubavitcher Rebbe asked is, if we are talking about the war against the evil inclination, something that each and every one of us has to deal with, which would explain why the Torah speaks in the singular tense, ki seitzei lemilchama leivecha, instead of saying seitzeu, which would be in the plural you, it's written instead in singular you. Why is it an optional war? If the battle against our evil inclination, our internal struggles, our doubts, temptations, lusts, is not optional, something which we all have to do. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe said a very powerful, beautiful thing. The Rebbe said that it's an optional war because we have a choice. We can choose to bypass the struggle if we focus and get assessed out of studying, learning Torah. That's it. This is what we're going to speak about today. The Rebbe said that we know that learning Torah elevates a person, brings a person to a higher level, a unity with God that nothing else could bring, as explained in the Tanya chapter 5. And so instead of fighting with the evil inclination head on, we can connect to the wisdom of God, giving us this refinement, connect to something higher, and therefore disconnecting from lower cravings, temptations, and lusts, and so on and so forth. And we see this in the Parsha because the Parsha speaks about a soldier during this optional war who is tempted to marry a non-Jewish woman he finds in the battlefield. And the Torah says, the Talmud explains that the reason why the soldier is allowed as a one-time thing to have relations with this woman, and then there's a process what to do if he wants to marry her and be with her another time, is because Hashem understands the evil inclination of man, that if this soldier would not be allowed to be together with this lady, he would be with her anyways. In other words, the Torah recognizes the how strong the lust of the evil inclination, and Hashem allowed it in this case, which, by the way, hints to the fact that in every other situation, nobody could say, I can't resist, I can't hold back. You're supposed to exercise self-control, also known as iskafia, which is spoken about at length, extreme length in Hasidic Torah and Kabbalah. So continue with how we started, that we have a choice, we have a chance, the ability to bypass the evil inclination, not to fall to the lust, and instead focus on Torah, connect to a higher reality. Rabbi Nachman of Breslev gave an example, an allegory of a story with Hungarian wine. The Hungarian wine was supposed to be the most delicious wine there was, and the Russian Tsars would control the whole process of whomever owned that land and processing the wine. and made sure that nobody had access to the wine except for them. That's the wine that they stored in their storehouses, the Hungarian wine. Everyone else could only dream about it. And it was thought to be the most delicious, exquisite wine that there is. So one of the workers of the Tsar was sent to help with the planting and with harvesting and with the producing of the wine. He was the one who had to sit together with the wine on a wagon, right, the barrels of wine, bringing them back to Russia. And here he is, a simple worker, a peasant, together within hand's reach of wine that he could only dream of. No other peasant could ever get so close to the wine, forget about tasting it. And he couldn't anymore. He begged the representative of the Tsar, please, let me just have a small little shot glass from this wine. And he agreed, and he tasted it. Oh, it was even better than he had ever imagined. Okay. And that's it. Years go by. Years go by, and he finds himself, this peasant, the worker, in an inn. And in the inn, there's two business partners. They had a great year. They're splitting the wealth. And to celebrate, they brought a bottle of authentic Hungarian wine that they bought for 500 rubles, a lot of money. And to celebrate, they give to everybody in the tavern, everybody in the inn, everybody in the bar, they give to taste from the wine. This peasant is there and says, please, can you give me a little bit as well to celebrate? And they agree. He takes a sip and he says, no, they fooled you. The wine is very good, but this is not Hungarian wine. They laugh at him. How do you know? You're a simple peasant. What do you know about wines? He says, no, I once tasted authentic Hungarian wine. Once you taste the real thing, you can't be deceived by anything else. This is where it's at. The Torah, God, Judaism, this is the real thing. This is the quote-unquote Hungarian wine. Once you taste the truth, once you taste emes, once you have the real thing, you can't be fooled, you can't be deceived by anything else. You know where it's at. You could say you're not holding there. You could say you have struggles. You could say you have temptations. Okay, no problem. I can respect you for that. But don't fool yourself and don't fool other people, because you know what the truth is. If we look in the Rambam, the works of Maimonides, when at the end of the laws of forbidden relations, arayos in Hebrew, he speaks about how channeling the lust for arayos into study of Torah is what saves a person. Same idea that we had before. One more thing. We find in Egypt that the Jews were not in Egypt or even enslaved in Egypt, even remotely, for the amount of time that God had told Abraham at the Bris Ben Absorim, the covenant between the parts. God told Abraham, you can look it up, it's in the Torah, it says, your offspring will be enslaved to a nation, for 400 years. We ended up being in Egypt for 210 years. But even the slavery only lasted 86 years. The slavery only began when none of the 12 tribes were left. All of the 12 tribes had passed away. But the tribe of Levi, his descendants were never enslaved, while the rest of the Jews had to work. Why? Because they chose a different kind of bondage, a different kind of enslavement. Instead of being bound to work for the Pharaoh and build the storehouses like everyone else, they dedicated their lives to the Torah. They dedicated their lives to study Torah, and they were exempt by Pharaoh's decree from doing physical labor. They're doing mental labor. They were learning, they were studying, they were delving deep into the Torah, into the Talmud. And this is what each and every one of us has. It's a gift given to each and every one of us. It's a medicine, as the Talmud says, Torah is a medicine against the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. If you don't know how to study, you don't know Hebrew, there is no problem. There's classes today in every single language you could dream of. Go to the main Chabad website, chabad.org, chabd.org. There's text you could read, there's video classes, there's audio classes, podcasts, all types of things on any subject of Judaism of your liking. So remember that we have a choice. That's why the Torah calls it an optional war, because we don't have to fight the evil inclination the rest of our lives. We could choose to connect to Torah, the call, the divine reality, and avoid it all together. I wish an early Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. See you, God willing, next week.